Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Buckle up, Broncos country, because what you're about to hear sounds almost too wild to be true. There is a single, glaring, fixable flaw hiding inside one of the most terrifying defenses professional football has seen in the last decade. And if Denver patches this one crack, we might not just be talking about a playoff run. We might be talking about the single greatest defense to ever step onto an NFL field. Not a good defense. Not a great defense. The greatest. Ever. Sit with that for a second. Because this isn't hype for the sake of hype. This is math. This is film. This is a coaching staff practically screaming it from the rooftops. And it all traces back to one man, one philosophy, and one embarrassing, costly habit that has to die in 2026 if the Denver Broncos want to fulfill a destiny that's been building since their Super Bowl glory days back in 2015. Let's rewind the tape because you need to understand exactly how good this team already is before your mind gets blown by how much better it could become. Defensive mastermind Vance Joseph has apparently had enough. Enough of watching his unit dominate on nearly every single meaningful statistic, only to come up short in the one category that actually decides championships: takeaways. Word out of Denver's building is that Joseph isn't just talking about forcing turnovers this offseason. He's obsessed with it. Sources close to the locker room say the phrase is written, literally, in marker, at the very top of the team's whiteboard. Not buried in the fine print. Not a footnote. The headline. The mission statement. The obsession. And when a defensive coordinator turned head coach puts something at the top of the board, you'd better believe every player in that room knows exactly what it means. Get the ball. Here's why this matters so much it should terrify the rest of the league. Last season, the Denver Broncos strolled into the record books with a defense that, by nearly every advanced metric, ranks among the most dominant units football has seen in the last 5 years. Try this stat on for size. Since 2021, only 2 defenses have posted a higher impact rating than last year's Broncos. Just 2. The legendary 2023 Cleveland Browns defense and the bone-crushing 2023 Baltimore Ravens defense. That's it. That's the entire list ahead of them. Everyone else in the last half-decade of professional football? Denver had them beat. Let that sink in. This wasn't a good defense having a nice season. This was a top 3 defensive performance in 5 years, and somehow, that wasn't even enough to be considered complete. Why? Because of one dirty little secret hiding underneath all that dominance, the Broncos could not, for the life of them, take the football away. In 2025, Denver forced just 14 turnovers across the entire season. 14. That ranked a shocking 26th in the entire NFL. Dead last territory for a defense operating at a championship level everywhere else. And it gets worse. The team's turnover margin sat at a brutal -3 on the year. -3. For a defense this ferocious, that number should be a crime. And here's the part that should make every Broncos fan equal parts furious and thrilled. Despite all of that, despite bleeding turnover opportunities all season long, Denver still went a staggering 14-3. Now do the thought experiment with me. What if that turnover margin had simply been even? 0, not even positive, just neutral. Some analysts believe that alone could have been the difference between a very good season and an undefeated, perfect 17-0 campaign. The kind of season that gets its own documentary for the next 50 years. That's the tantalizing what-if hanging over this franchise right now. A championship-level defense that left an entire perfect season sitting on the table because it couldn't close its fist around the football. So how dominant was this unit everywhere else? Let's run through the receipts, because the numbers are almost comical. Back-to-back seasons leading the entire NFL in sacks. In 2024 and again in 2025, Denver's pass rush was the scariest in football, racking up 68 sacks last season alone, and 63 the year before that, a combined 131 sacks across 2 seasons. That's not just good, that's terrifying, quarterback nightmare fuel type production. Then there's the secondary, which was every bit as suffocating. In passing situations, the Broncos ranked 6th in the league in EPA allowed per pass attempt, and remember, with this stat, you want the number to be as negative as possible because it means opposing quarterbacks were getting punished every time they dropped back. 6th in the league. Elite company. The only teams anywhere near that level of dominance? Squads like the Houston Texans, one of the most feared rosters in football. And it doesn't stop there. In the red zone, the most valuable real estate on the football field, Denver allowed just 21 touchdowns all season long, tied for the very best mark in the entire NFL. Opponents also struggled mightily on third down against this defense, converting just 33.8% of their chances, the second stingiest mark in professional football. Read that list back one more time. First in sacks. Sixth in EPA allowed. Tied for first in red zone touchdowns allowed. Second in third down defense. This is a unit that was elite, and then turnovers 26th. It's like discovering a supercar with a Formula 1 engine, razor-sharp handling, and a braking system from a shopping cart. Everything works beautifully except the one thing that could turn great into immortal. So where did it all go wrong? This is where the story gets almost painful to watch, because when you rewatch the tape, the missed turnovers weren't bad luck. They were drops. Actual, ball in your hands, game-changing interceptions that slipped right through Broncos' fingers. And here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. One of the primary culprits wearing a Denver uniform was none other than fan-favorite safety Talanoa Hufanga. By some counts, Hufanga personally dropped at least 3 interceptions last season after a full film review, and some analysts believe the real number of missed takeaways involving him could be as high as 5 or 6 when you account for the whole defense. 5 or 6 turnovers left on the field. In a league decided by inches and possessions, that's not a small mistake. That's potentially several extra wins, maybe a different seed in the playoffs, maybe an entirely different ending to the season. Now, before the pitchforks come out, let's be crystal clear about something. This isn't a hit piece on Talanoa Hufanga. The man was sensational in 2025. We're talking 106 tackles, 6 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks, and 11 passes defended. That's a superstar-level season by almost any measuring stick. This young man should be a Bronco for the rest of his career. Full stop. But even superstars have a glaring weakness to iron out, and it appears Hufanga knows it better than anyone. Reports from the team facility indicate he has been grinding away on the jugs machine, the mechanical device that fires footballs at receivers for extra catching reps, working obsessively to fix the one flaw in an otherwise phenomenal game. That's the kind of self-awareness that turns very good players into legends. But here's a stat that might genuinely make your jaw hit the floor. Guess who led the Denver Broncos in interceptions last season? Go ahead, guess. If you said star cornerback Jaquan McMillan, congratulations. You're half right, and honestly, you'd expect that from a lockdown corner in his prime. But the second name on that list is where things get downright bizarre. The Broncos' number 2 interception producer in 2025 was an edge rusher. Dondre Tillman. A pass rusher. Not a nickel corner, not a safety patrolling the deep middle, an edge defender was out intercepting almost the entire back 7 of Denver's own defense. That is not normal. That is frankly hilarious in a horrifying sort of way, because it tells you the turnover production wasn't coming from where it's supposed to come from. And here's the kicker that makes this whole situation even more maddening. Denver plays more man coverage than almost any team in the league. In man coverage, when the ball is in the air, it's a 50-50 jump ball battle almost every single time. 50-50 odds, snap after snap, game after game, and somehow this defense still finished near the bottom of the league in takeaways. With that much man coverage volume, the interception total should be through the roof, not buried in the 20s league-wide. So no, this isn't a case of blaming one guy. It's not on cornerback Riley Moss. It's not on safety Jalen Jade, whoever's lining up next to him. It's not on Jaquan McMillan. It's not on Pat Surtain. It's a collective, fixable, correctable issue, and Vance Joseph appears absolutely determined to correct it. If this defense simply learns to finish plays, to close its hands around footballs that are already flying its direction at an elite rate, Denver isn't looking at a top 3 defense over the last 5 years anymore. It's looking at potentially rewriting the record books entirely. So buckle up, because if you thought that was the only bombshell in this story, think again, because the Broncos' path to greatness isn't just about defense. There's a wide receiver on this roster who might be the single most underutilized offensive weapon in the entire National Football League. And the numbers behind it are almost impossible to believe. His name is Marvin Mims Jr., and quite frankly, Denver has been sitting on a gold mine and refusing to dig. Let's set the stage. The Broncos receiver room going into this season is absolutely loaded. Courtland Sutton, Jalen Wadd, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, rookie standout Pat Bryant, and depth pieces like Lil Jordan Humphrey and Hakeem Butler rounding things out. On paper, that's one of the deepest, most versatile receiver corps in football. Everybody can get open. Everybody brings something different to the table. But somewhere in that crowded, talented room, Marvin Mims got lost in the shuffle, and the tape doesn't lie. In 2025, across 379 offensive snaps, Marvin Mims saw only 51 targets as a receiver. Let that number marinate. Compare that to Courtland Sutton's monstrous 975 targets, or Troy Franklin's healthy 670. Even rookie Pat Bryant, in his very first professional season, out-targeted Mims with 475. The only Bronco pass catcher who saw fewer opportunities than Mims was a depth piece in Lil Jordan Humphrey. For a player with Mims' specific skill set, that's not just a low number, it's borderline malpractice, and it shows up brutally in the efficiency numbers. Back in 2024, when Denver actually let Marvin Mims cook, he averaged an electric 1 yards every time he caught the football, a true home run hitting, field-flipping weapon. Fast forward to 2025, and that number cratered to just 8.7 yards per catch. That's nearly cut in half. A player who was once producing chunk plays and highlight reel gains got reduced to short, low-impact touches simply because the opportunities dried up. Even Denver's own coaching staff can't ignore it anymore. Head coach Sean Payton, an offensive mind who has built championship-caliber attacks before, has been directly asked about the Marvin Mims situation, and his answer says everything you need to know. Payton has openly admitted that Mims' name comes up in game planning meetings every single week without fail. He's acknowledged that every time the coaching staff pushes the ball downfield to Mims, the young receiver delivers. The problem was never talent. The problem was touches. So let's actually run the numbers, because this is where it gets exciting. In 2025, Marvin Mims caught 37 passes across those 379 snaps, a receptions per snap rate of roughly 0.097. Now, take that exact same efficiency rate and simply apply it to the number of snaps Troy Franklin played last season, 670. Do the math, and you get Marvin Mims hauling in roughly 65 receptions. 65 catches, just by giving him the same workload as Denver's WR2 from a year ago. Now here's where it gets even juicier. Let's be conservative and say Mims only manages a modest 5 yards per catch in that expanded role, a number that's actually lower than his 2024 average, so we're not even being generous here. 65 catches at 10.5 yards per reception comes out to a jaw-dropping 682.5 receiving yards. That's not depth chart filler production. That's legitimate plug-and-play WR3 numbers, produced by a guy who barely got on the field last season. In other words, Denver could get the exact same kind of season Troy Franklin gave them as their number 2 receiver last year, except squeezed out of a player currently buried at WR4 or WR5 on the depth chart. The talent is screaming to be unleashed. The separation ability is already elite. The only variable left to change is volume. Just give this man the football. And here's a bit of reassurance for anyone panicking about Denver shipping him elsewhere. All signs point toward Marvin Mims staying right where he belongs, in Broncos orange and blue, likely locking up a contract extension rather than heading out the door in a trade. The belief in this building is that 2026 is finally the year Mims gets the touches his talent has always demanded. So let's zoom all the way out and look at the full picture, because this is genuinely staggering when you put it all together. A defense that already ranks among the top 3 most dominant units of the last 5 years, missing only one ingredient, finishing turnovers, that the head coach has personally made his number 1 offseason priority, and an offense sitting on a game-breaking, explosive play receiver who has been criminally underused, with a coaching staff that's fully aware of the problem and motivated to fix it. If Denver solves even one of these 2 riddles this season, they're a legitimate juggernaut. If they solve both, we could be witnessing the construction of the most complete, most terrifying, most historically dominant football team this franchise has fielded since it hoisted that Lombardi trophy back in 2015. Not a good team, not a great team. Potentially, a team that ends up in the conversation with the greatest defenses and most explosive supporting offenses this league has ever produced. That's the story sitting right in front of us, Broncos country. The pieces are already there. The blueprint is already written, literally, on a whiteboard in Denver's own locker room. All that's left is execution. So here's what we want to know from you. Do you believe this Denver Broncos defense finally turns the corner and finishes as a positive turnover margin unit in 2026? Do you think Marvin Mims finally gets unleashed the way this breakdown says he should be? Drop your predictions down in the comments below. We want to hear every bit of your Broncos country passion. And if this deep dive fired you up even half as much as it fired us up putting it together, do not scroll away without smashing that like button. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know. Drop a comment with your thoughts, your predictions, your hot takes. We read every single one. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we are just getting started breaking down everything happening with this Broncos roster heading into what could be one of the most historic seasons this franchise has ever seen. Until next time, Broncos country, this has been Brinkos, and we'll see you in the next one.